There's a conversation that I'll have with you off camera, and
Hmm.
I'll walk you through this whole thing, and I think you'll understand why I've not wanted to talk about it.
Hmm.
Because I don't think that that's helpful, and I understand that the media feels like they're being the responsible ones, but I don't think that that's true, and I think the evidence is to the contrary.
Nerderotic.com.
The key to being a good critic is having good taste. You can go to all the film school you want, you can study all the cinema you want. If you don't know good from bad because you were just born without that, you're not going to make a very good critic. And I think that's what we have now, especially with the current crop at Rotten Tomatoes. Now, nobody goes to Rotten Tomatoes anymore to see if a movie's good or not from a critic, but I think there's a group of us, including myself, that go there to have a little fun, to watch them embarrass themselves. And the Joker has been the gift that keeps on giving. The second best thing about the Joker, the obvious first being it's a great film, is how it exposes the access media, being the gaslighting shills that they are. But before I get started, if you like what I do here, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking and sharing the videos. And I would like to thank all of the new subscribers and everybody who has spread the word here, because we rely on you now more than ever. YouTube has recently made a change to the algorithm that greatly benefits the corporations and does not benefit independent YouTube channels. I would appreciate it, and your favorite YouTuber would appreciate it. I think it's important to point out, while it says 90% audience score and 68% critic score, if you hit top critics, it's actually at 44%, and that is a good number of them. And it also needs to be pointed out that Batwoman has a higher critic score than the Joker. Now, there is a huge difference in number of critics who actually reviewed it. It doesn't change the fact that Batwoman is rated higher through critics than the Joker, and of course, we all know why. And I know, hashtag not all, we are talking about the members of the Access media who were hoping for incel violence, whatever that is. You know, the side of inclusivity and diversity and empathy, the ones who want to hurl the insult incel out there, which is just generally a lonely person who can't hook up. It's not necessarily a man, and it's not necessarily a white man, but they sure like to throw out that insult because nerds have never heard that before. Right behind that is cousin humping basement dwellers. I know a little bit about storytelling, and that's only through being a comic book fan all my life and selling comic books for 10 years here in San Francisco. You may not have heard that, but here's the meme anyway. And I won't pretend to be a critic. I have never studied film or cinema. I am just a bloke with a mic and an internet connection and an opinion that occasionally connects with an audience. That's it. I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I know most people, most of the general audience who has seen the Joker, likes it. Now, I can again understand why some critics genuinely wouldn't like the film, but I would question their taste at this point. But more importantly, we see why some critics won't like the film. And the critics initially liked the Joker too, but then the incel narrative came out, and then the usual suspects took the bait. Now, there is the argument out there that I am certainly willing to listen to, that this was just all genius Warner Brother marketing, and that we just bit into it. That is something I am willing to entertain. I initially thought that the first time I heard the incel argument. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. The military putting out a statement. Now, I heard that through Gizmodo, and we know how reliable that source is. But I don't know. Alls I know is Joker's a good film, and we are seeing critics stumble over themselves and getting their panties in a twist because they don't know which way to go on this one, instead of just going with how they feel about the film. My guess is the Joker didn't turn out to be the woker like I thought it was going to be, and that really stung the Access media. They thought they were being good little soldiers doing the bidding of these major corporations to maintain their access, and maybe they feel a little betrayed. Plus, it's a movie with a white male lead. We can't have that. Plus, it's usually those of us in and around the fandom menace, those of us who criticize Batwoman, Captain Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, we're the ones being called istophobes. But we all know a lot of this is projection, and it is displayed in some of the reviews I'm about to show you. And this is why we're in a creative crisis in Hollywood, one they brought on themselves, and one that was brought on by the access media, because the only characters you can present as villains are white people right now, and the only people you can present with flaws or any kind of complexity is white people, because a lot of writers, particularly white writers, are writing in fear. Fear of being censored. They're self-censoring. Fear of being called an objectifier. Fear of being called an istophobe. Our first critic is Matthew Rosa from Salon. Yes, that same Salon that gives voice to certain types of abusers that we can't even name here on YouTube without getting demonetized. Joker is a wildly uneven mess and a dangerous one in the wrong hands. Joker is a movie that you ignore at your own peril. Its fans will no doubt complain that this review focuses on politics, as most reviews do from the access media, especially from Salon. But the movie's political implications are so explicit and intentional, despite the main character's last-minute protestations to the contrary, that ignoring them would be the film critic equivalent of dereliction of duty. Wow. Dereliction of duty is everything you have done over the past 2 or 3 years, especially at Salon. If you're going to be a message picture, then your message defines your artistic merit. And I'll fill in the blanks here. I'll use some SJW speak here. So what you're saying is the political message needs to agree with yours, Matthew Rosa. Is it a dangerous manifesto that could inspire incels to commit acts of violence, as some of its critics fear? An edgy character study teeming with social commentary, as director Todd Phillips and co-writer Scott Silver seem to have intended? Is it a dark comic book adventure like The Dark Knight, or a perverse ode to mentally ill social rejects like the Martin Scorsese classics Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy and The Dark Knight as well? I don't think for 1 second Matthew Rosa was ever going to like this film, and you will see why. The answer is yes to all of those questions, but explaining why is not so simple. It's best to start by describing the skin of the film, its meandering plot, before trying to disentangle the messy entrails. And I will save you from his messy and meandering critique. And yes, there is good reason to worry that this film will appeal to incels. The character of Sophie Dumman, played by Zazie Beetz, exists for no other purpose than to be a supposed love interest who is stalked, obsessed over, has her apartment broken into, and eventually reduced to a plot gimmick. She is, in other words, an object in Fleck's world rather than a three-dimensional character. And his arguments against the three-dimensionality of Zazie Beetz' character in this film are precisely why we don't get three-dimensional characters written in current year, with her main function that of reinforcing Fleck's sense of failure and justify his resentments against the world, which again, within context of this film, that is her character's purpose. That's why she was written into this story. This is perhaps an intentional parallel to Sybil Shepherd's Betsy from Taxi Driver, you think? But we actually saw Robert De Niro's Travis Bickle interact with her in meaningful ways and learned about her as a person, which we did enough in this story, again within context. While Sophie isn't vilified, the simplistic and objectifying nature of her story arc is problematic and meshes uneasily with a movie that is aimed at the violently embittered. This plays right into the narrative folks like Vox try to push, the fight over Joker and the new movie's dangerous message explained. Or Joker could be validation for violent glory seekers. But in a very 4D chess kind of way, they are again playing into the franchise owner's hands, and maybe we are as well. And Dave Cullen pointed this out in a video, and I can't say I entirely disagree with him on that. But this brings me back to the Vice article that said you can definitely skip Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special, Sticks and Stones, which just directed people towards the most important piece of comedy we've had in over a decade. But let's go see what Matthew Rosa likes. Oh, he was a fan of Captain Marvel. Why am I not surprised? So he liked Captain Marvel, but he didn't like Joker. Again, This also comes down to taste. This from Richard Brody from The New Yorker. A movie of cynicism so vast and pervasive as to render the viewing experience even emptier than its slapdash aesthetic does. It's all about worldview on this one, folks. Joker is an intensely realized movie, a drama awash in racial iconography that is so prevalent in the film, so provocative, and so unexamined as to be bewildering. What it seems to be saying is utterly incoherent beyond the suggestion that Arthur, who is mentally ill, becomes violent after being assaulted by a group of people of color, and he suffers callous behavior from one black woman and believes that he's ignored by another, and reacts with jubilation at the idea of being a glamorous white star amid a supporting cast of cheering black laborers. But unlike the public discourse around the Central Park Five, and unlike the case of Bernard Goetz, and unlike the world, the discourse in The Joker and the thought process of Arthur Fleck are utterly devoid of any racial or social specificity. Maybe, just maybe, Richard Brody, The Joker is a supervillain origin story, and Todd Phillips is not trying to craft a narrative where a white mass murderer is praised by laborers of color. Maybe he just wanted to give texture to his world. To be fair, our friend Brody hated every superhero film he saw, so there you go. This brings us to The Guardian, because we have two pieces from The Guardian, one that is positive and one that is negative. This is from Peter Bradshaw, who calls The Joker the most disappointing film of the year. The whole idea of the malign clown should be very relevant. We live in an era of trolling, incels, and internet bullies. But what did Peter Bradshaw like? Well, he gave both Batman and Robin and Captain Marvel 3 out of 5 stars, a positive rating. So again, this falls to taste. Batman and Robin, good movie. Joker, bad movie. I guess he likes nipples on the batsuit. And as you can see here, Rotten Tomatoes has their new function for audience scores. And if you go to verified audience, well, it's all 5 and 4 stars. Tino Cash, 5 stars. Lawrence Sher DP shot every frame perfectly, and whoever color graded this did an amazing job as well. Yes, Todd Phillips wrote and directed this beautifully, and Joaquin was masterful as well. But we've got to give credit to the DPs, editors, and all lines of production. A definite must-see and a definite must-own for the collection. Truly a stunning picture. Jesse, 5 stars. It's a must-see if you want to jump out of the ordinary take on what DC has been shooting out. Definitely a raw take on what this villain can truly be by not keeping it PG-13. Batman needs this sort of take. I totally agree with that. This is a smash hit. It's almost at $600 million worldwide at the box office for a rated R movie that cost, what, under $50 million? And not all of the access media played along. As a matter of fact, I would say they're split on this one, but you definitely did see some people swing hard for the fences for that incel argument, and they've got a lot of egg on their faces right now. But you just further expose yourself as the hack shills that you are, and it's good to be rid of you. Now, I want to close this out with a statement from a negative review that's positive from Jordan Hoffman from The Guardian. I'm also not really sure why people are talking about incels so much in relation to this movie. Although, in fairness, this article does point out that it's a total red herring, I realize that young white men are considered enemy number one these days, and not without some justification, I should add. I disagree with that. But the sneering tone used to talk about young men with mental health issues who may feel isolated from society is hardly constructive. Not everyone who reads Jordan Peterson or who is against woke culture in general is a creepy misogynist bigot. So maybe let's stop with the sweeping generalizations because we think it sounds funny. You shouldn't tolerate that kind of thing with any other group of people, so start practicing what you preach. Again, I don't agree with every word of that statement, but the sentiment is there. Critics of Captain Marvel Star Wars, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Doctor Who, and most recently Batwoman have all been hit with these broad generalizations, and now fans of the Joker are as well. But within that statement I just read, you heard the David Chappelle effect. And again, that was within a critique of the Joker. This is the fandom menace growing. What you really have to look into is where these critiques are coming from. Largely, it's other YouTubers, the Access Media, and blue check marks on Twitter. And you just need to look at the individual and it becomes clear. It's all about partisan politics. And when the Joker comes out and muddies the waters because it's confusing to the Access Media, it's not a message movie. Again, it is a super villain origin story, written with layers and complexity, designed to be debated and talked about because of the non-specific nature of a lot of the film. That is what's great about it, and I hope Todd Phillips never tells us what he had in mind. I want to go to my deathbed not knowing what he thought about the Joker, hopefully a long time from now. But the Access Media certainly thought they had a chance to take another shot at fandom, and they couldn't, and that's what they are disappointed about. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, well, thanks for listening this long. I'll see you in the next video.
Nerderotic.com. Please subscribe.